The following program is a collaboration between Whatcom Community College and KMRE News. Today's KMRE conversation is with the primary candidates for the Bellingham mayoral race. With 5 candidates in the field, we want to help our listeners understand the differences between candidates by giving each person running for office a chance to answer the questions that are on our listeners' minds. Each candidate was given a total of 20 minutes to answer the same questions. Today, we are presenting all the candidates' responses to one of those questions. You can hear the complete interviews at kmre.org. We've seen a growing emphasis on bike and pedestrian improvements in places around town, as well as an increase in car-pedestrian accidents in other spots. Do you see Bellingham as a safe community to walk in? Do you think the new bike measures are working?
My name is Seth Fleetwood. I'm the mayor of Bellingham. Yes, they're absolutely working. So we have policy direction and budget commitment to continuously expand our network of sidewalks and bike lanes, and we're implementing them all the time. Is there going to be conflict with an ever-growing city with greater density and more people out and exposed by walking and driving? Yes, and so we're going to have to implement every protective measure that we can to be ready for that reality. But we're fundamentally and consistently improving in terms of creating a more walkable and bike-friendly community.
Mike McCauley, and I'm a building designer. I'm the owner of McCauley Design Works. I would say that the city of Bellingham is just as safe to walk in as any other city, right? All the pedestrian standards they're mandated federally. The sidewalks, the way the curb cuts work, all that kind of stuff. The right-hand turn problem is a problem in any city that you go to. So there's been some new effort on adjusting how the crosswalks work and how they're timed and that sort of thing, so that the right-hand turn problem is reduced. When it comes to the bicycles, okay, so this was near and dear to my heart. I've long felt that the bicycle pedestrian conversation at the same time is an inappropriate conversation. Bicycles are very different than pedestrians. I used to race bicycles. I've ridden on and trained on every street in this county. I'd spend 20 plus hours a week just training on the road. So I've seen probably everything you can see that would happen on a roadway. And we need to take the pedestrian conversation and keep doing what we're doing with that. But the bicycle conversation has to expand. When we look at arterials, they go where people want to go in their cars, right? But we also know that that's where people want to go, period. So we try to get a bus line in there, and we try to get bike routes in there, and then suddenly we're cramming everybody into the same place, and all of the intersections create conflict, and that's where we have the accidents, right? Where people trying to cross those arterials, that's where we have the accidents. My proposal would be to take what's called a bicycle boulevard, and we have one of those in the city on Illinois, and just blow that up into a micro-mobility corridors. So if you take an arterial and you go 1 block over in almost any part of our city, you've got a neighborhood street that's roughly empty most of the day, right? So you take that and you do partial closures. They're very, very cheap to do, because if you go look at what's on Illinois, you can see exactly how it's done. It's a very, very cost-effective way to take bicycles and other micro-mobility users. So those are the electric skateboards, the electric scooters, all of those other things that when they're crammed into the arterials create more conflict. We take them off of that road so that the cars aren't fighting for space, the people that need parking aren't fighting for parking, and the people that are on, they're just out there in their skin, not surrounded by a car, are going to feel safe. The reason I want to do that is because we need mode shift, and mode shift isn't just creating a facility like a bike lane and saying, here's your bike lane, now go use it. It's creating a psychological change so that the behavior of people changes. If I told you that Alabama was a safe route to school and you had a 5-year-old, would you tell your kid to walk down Alabama? It's a perfectly safe street. It's got a hot crossing. There's nothing wrong with that. But psychologically, you struggle with that. So if we go a block over where there's no traffic, then we use those for our micro-mobility corridors. We can do that throughout almost all the city until we get to the north. And then I'm proposing that we put a tunnel under I-5 just east of Meridian to connect the neighborhoods through there, and then do some pedestrian and micro-mobile ADA accessible bridges over Meridian so we connect the neighborhoods side to side as well, because that's growing out there. So I think for me, that's how we reduce those conflicts and we get more people out of their cars and into those things like electric bicycles and that sort of thing.
My name's Chris McCoy. I am best known locally as the founder of Kombucha Town and the Culture Cafe in downtown Bellingham. So the biking master plan of our community is actually pretty good and quite extensive. I reviewed it recently, and over the last 10 years, there's been $20 million worth of improvements just specifically for biking and for pedestrian walkability and safety. And I personally am an avid cyclist. I ride all different types of bike. I love mountain biking. I like riding to work in town. I live in Sunset near the freeway and the highway, but even there, I'm 2 blocks from a trail that can go all across town. And so I think that's an amazing asset to our community, and one thing I do commend the existing government for investing in. So we want to maintain that. And we want to grow that with the community too. So I think identifying which of those projects has been the most successful and which ones haven't, how to maintain them so that they're a lasting value, because a lot of those things do need to be maintained, and you don't want to invest millions of dollars into something that then just degrades over not being a priority in a new mayoral administration or something like that. And so that is something that I would plan on, and I do plan on just myself continuing to use and continuing to expand. And I think that Bellingham is, for how sort of rural it is in not being that dense of a community, it is very walkable and bikeable. And so that's something that, having received a lot of benefit from that, I think I share that perspective, having seen our town from so many miles of trails, so many days a year. And so maintaining that is something that I would really enjoy and look at expanding based on the feedback of what areas of the community are growing.
Christina Michelle Martins. My title, current job, is the at-large Bellingham City Council member. This is such a loaded question because I'm from San Diego, California. You take your life into your hands when you're a pedestrian or in a car. It is just utter chaos all the time everywhere. I personally think that Bellingham is a great location. I am actually part of a one-car household and spend most of my time walking and taking the bus around town in general. And I've had no issues over the past 4 years personally. Where I think that we are definitely lacking is providing safe routes to school. The Happy Valley neighborhood has a huge issue with a bus stop being on a road that doesn't have a sidewalk, and they have been trying to elevate those concerns, I believe for 5 to 6 years right now, and the community is being told it's on the list, but the list itself is 6 years long. So I think that we could definitely be prioritizing where we're building new infrastructure for safer pedestrian travel by making sure that we are protecting the most vulnerable first. I personally am very interested to see the results of taking the on-street parking off of Eldridge. And that unto itself has been quite the conversation in the community, and putting in bike lanes. The community members or the residents who live on that street do not believe that putting in the bike lanes with the pillars was going to help slow down traffic at all. On that note, I don't have a background in that, but Public Works thinks that this is the best way forward, and to a certain degree, I really do. For some things, have to rely on what they're saying, especially when they're subject matter experts on something that I'm definitely not. And I believe on the docket coming up for council eventually in the near future is an overview of speed limits across all of Bellingham City. And I would definitely be in favor of lowering them across the board. And I get the feeling that there's definitely a lot of room for discussion in that in general. I forget the stat off the top of my head, but I think every increase in 10 miles an hour then exponentially opens the chance for some sort of accident. So if we can lower it across town altogether, and in a town that is so small, and people complain about sitting in 15-minute traffic, and I'm just like, enjoy it while we have it. But I do think that Bellingham overall, especially with the bike plan, has been doing an amazing job, and a lot of that rests on the community members who really wanted to see these things come forward. And luckily, the administration and city staff and Public Works were ready to hear that and are diligently working forward to a better, brighter, and a lower emission future.
My name is Kim Lund. I'm a candidate for the mayor of Bellingham. I think this community has started to make big investments, and we are a biking community. But when I see bike lanes alongside roads, and in particular on Chestnut Street, where we have that odd zigzag of an approach right by the Herald Building, that seems not safe to me. So how can we make it safe as we want to shift modalities? Bikeable, walkable cities. When you go to places that have done this work well, they feel different. They feel good to be navigating through. And I think we could get a lot more people biking and walking, which align with our climate goals. We know that's where we want to go, by going and looking at case studies for cities that are doing this work better than we are in this moment. And making sure, for example, that there's physical separation and barriers that can protect cyclists on the sides of the roads and that are sharing. Or that we just look outside of our arterials. Are there other streets that we dedicate for riding, walking, rolling, whatever that might be? So, you know, the Burt Gilman Trail is an absolute asset to the Seattle community. You know, is it possible to look at the next evolution of our Greenways Fund to do that kind of connector in a really safe way to connect both our green spaces and urban villages? I'd be a big fan of an approach like that.
Thank you for listening to this KMRE Conversation with the primary candidates, a collaboration between Whatcom Community College and KMRE News. You can hear more from each of the candidates by listening every day after the 5 p.m. news or by going to kmre.org.